All right. Something very strange and very supernatural happened when Mel Gibson made the Passion of the Christ movie. And it doesn't have anything to do with acting. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to his recent interview with Joe Rogan, but it made me wonder, what if a movie isn't just a movie? What if it's a weapon in a spiritual war that you don't even know that you are fighting in? Because behind the camera, something unexplainable was happening. Lightning, wounds, haunting, silence. The Passion of the Christ didn't just break box office records. It broke the boundaries between the physical world and the spiritual world. And Mel Gibson called it a spiritual weapon. So, what happened? Skies turned black without warning. Lightning struck the set not once, not twice, 3 separate times. Now, the first time lightning struck, it hit Jim Caviezel, the actor who played Jesus Christ. But guess when it happened? During the crucifixion scene, while he was positioned on the cross. The bolt actually caused huge physical trauma. He bit through his tongue, his cheeks. He later had medical complications requiring 2 heart surgeries, including one that was an open heart procedure. But that wasn't the only time that lightning struck. The assistant director was struck by lightning twice on the same set on 2 separate occasions. And luckily he survived both accidents. But, of course, the film crew's uneasy. They're spiritually afraid. They're wondering what else, if something supernatural is happening. And Mel Gibson, he knew. He warned Jim Caviezel, the actor playing Jesus. He said, if you take this role, you will never work in this town again. If you take this role, your life will never be the same again. Clearly, he wasn't speaking in metaphors. He was talking about a really strange spiritual truth, one that's hidden in ancient scripture. It's echoed in quantum science and rooted in a truth that the church and Hollywood never wanted you to fully understand. Your personal transformation is really a spiritual technology. It's a weapon in an unseen spiritual war that is happening in plain sight. And when you shift into this transformation, it changes you. Your reality begins to warp. And at first, it can feel scary. It can feel like a lonely supernatural experience. And that's why in this video, I'm going to be decoding Mel Gibson's strange warning of a hidden spiritual warfare that's going on right now in your life. How it can be scary, confusing, but ultimately how it's going to change your life for the better. The supernatural chaos that unfolded in front of them, and then God removed all those burdens. And most importantly, how this strange thing happens in your life when you spiritually awaken, and how to complete the shift to become who God intended you to be. And today we're going to make sense of all that. So the spiritual warfare and evil forces not only don't defeat you, but so that you know exactly how to complete the spiritual mission that God gave you before you were born. And let me just say that this is happening right now in your life, whether you realize it or not. And it's going to get bigger. And it's going to get bigger. So this is a super important video. But before we dive into it, my name's Jake with JakeDucey.com. Wishing you a beautiful day. Thanks for being here. If you're new here, if you're a returner, thanks for being here. And make sure you hit the like, subscribe, bell notification. I have a free success hypnosis to reprogram your subconscious mind. A lot of the way that evil manifests in our life is through our own subconscious programming. Like, we don't even realize that it's happening. And it manifests as negative and almost like an evil force. But it's subconscious programming you inherited from childhood, and it's controlling your entire life. And you can reprogram it. When I first started listening to this, I was making like $1,500 a month. Within 2 years, I was making more money than I could possibly spend. And over 1 million people from all over the world have used it. It's free. It's jakeshypnosis.com. You can click right here to get that, or it is in the link in the description and pinned as the top comment. Now, in the late 1990s, Mel Gibson had it all: global fame, Oscars, creative control in Hollywood. But behind, he was really unraveling. Addiction was consuming him. Depression was really making him consider taking his life. And he got on his knees and he cried out to God that my sins were the first to nail him to the cross. Now, from that moment when he surrendered, he got the vision, not just a film idea. He didn't just want to make a biblical movie. He wanted to tell the truth. He wanted to do it in a way that did it justice, not the way that Hollywood wanted him to do it. Now, speaking of good over evil, Hollywood was horrified by this. So executives didn't just say no to him, they laughed at him. A blood-soaked the religious film, all these old languages. They said, this isn't marketable, no one's going to watch this isn't going to work, and this is going to ruin your career. So what did Mel Gibson do? He wrote the check himself. $30 million for the production, $15 million for the marketing. No studio, no investors. Just one guy who believed there was a spiritual war happening. And what happened next was pretty crazy. He cast Jim Caviezel as the man who would play Jesus. Actually, ironically, he's got the JC initials. He was 33 when he played it, same year when Jesus was crucified. And that's really when strange things started to happen, because that was the beginning of marching into the spiritual war. And here's the thing. To realize your true spiritual identity, the one that God has intended for you, it may look like you're going into battle alone. It looks scary. It might start off chilling or frightening, and you may want to turn back. But what you don't realize is that God will perform miracles for you. And I'm about to show you how that happens for you. So the story just gets stranger and stranger. And I know I mentioned before, but now that the stage is set for the film coming together, let me just remind you that Gibson gave Caviezel this warning, and it really was more like a divine prophecy. He said, once you step into this role, you will never come back. Why? Because once you shift from ordinary human consciousness, you begin to pursue a personal relationship with God. You enter the battlefield of spiritual war. And on the other side, God will give you everything that you could ask for and more, but there are some very important warnings before you get there. Now, here's Gibson. He's warning him, once you step forward, there is no going back. And then it's basically as if they immediately step into this battlefield of good over evil. And that's when the strange things start happening. Caviezel is struck by lightning while he's on the cross to film the scene. The assistant director is struck twice by lightning. Caviezel dislocates his shoulder trying to carry the cross. He develops hypothermia while he's hanging on it, and he nearly dies. And this is where it gets even more chilling. The actor who played Judas, he nearly died in a freak accident on the set. Judas, the disciple who betrays Jesus for silver, the man who in scripture chose greed over God. Now imagine this, the actor, assuming that identity, suddenly gets caught in a freak accident that almost kills him. You can call it a coincidence. You can call it what everyone else called it on the set, proof that there's spiritual law, that reality will match your new version of yourself. And this is important because whatever role you are assuming, whether you see yourself as someone who's always in debt, someone who isn't worthy of attracting true love, you still have to be careful because reality will match your role that you're playing. And in this case, even when you're just acting in a movie, you are still assuming an identity. And when you assume the role of betrayal, you might invite consequences that come with that. Now, it gets even stranger because Leonello was actually a devout atheist. But after that moment, something changed inside of him. He began to experience a personal relationship with God. And what happened to them is really the same thing that happens to anyone who is stepping into who God intended you to be. In quantum terms, reality isn't solid, right? It's a field of possibilities. And what collapses those probabilities into form? It's consciousness, it's intention, it's identity, it's personality, it's the role that you assume yourself to play. In a manifestation, we call it like self-concept. In spirituality, we talk about realizing your true spiritual identity. In quantum physics, we talk about observation, collapsing the wave function, and warping reality to match your conscious intention. But they're all pointing to the exact same thing. You don't create from wanting. You create from being. So when Caviezel took on the Christ role, his personal frequency was no longer aligned with his old personal timeline. That timeline collapsed. People didn't see him as an actor anymore. It's weird. They projected the symbol of Christ onto him. And the same thing happens to you. When you shift into abundance, when you shift into confidence, into freedom, into what you're worth, you stop resonating with your old life. You're on a different frequency. Like I remember when I first decided I was going to build a career as an author and a speaker, and I thought that the universe was just going to give me everything that I wanted. It was going to be effortless. It was going to be easy, but it wasn't. I assumed a new identity. I was playing a new role as a millionaire author and speaker. That's what I wanted. But then I found myself crying on the floor in my room. I'd put my life savings into my first book. Every single publishing company denied me, and I didn't know what to do. And here's the thing, when you truly decide to live the life that God intended for you, you are tested first, and it's uncomfortable. Should I quit? This isn't worth it. I don't know what to do. Those are normal feelings. When you shift, chaos follows. Old friends drift, business deals fall through, emotions intensify, and the world around you kind of seems to punish your growth at first. But it's not punishment. It's actually a recalibration of your frequency. Just like you can't install new software on a cluttered hard drive, you can't become someone without the old dying first. So if you think about it in like biblical stories, Abram becomes Abraham. Saul becomes Paul. Jacob becomes Israel. In each case, the new shift triggers a new reality. And the same thing happened to Mel Gibson when it was time to finally release this movie. Every major studio turned him down. Remember, it's too violent, it's too religious, it's too risky. Nobody wants to watch this crap. It's a subtitled film in languages that aren't spoken anymore. There's no stars. Executives are like, no one's going to watch this. But Mel Gibson did not flinch. He poured 30 million, like I said, 30 million of his own dollars, then another 15 more million for the marketing. But if you think about it, only 15 million for marketing is nothing for a movie. No Hollywood distribution company, and he's Mel Gibson. No studio, no safety net, just faith. And then Ash Wednesday comes, and everything changes. It brought in $611 million at the box office, one of the highest actually grossing R-rated films in history. Think about it. An audience, they didn't just watch it. People were crying. They were praying. Some people passed out. They fainted in the theaters. There were reports of visions and healings and spiritual awakenings. But that all came with a cost. Jim Caviezel was blacklisted. He said that he went from one of the most in-demand actors to an absolute ghost. Mel Gibson kind of goes crazy, DUIs, public meltdowns, all these scandals. And friends were saying it was like something followed him back. He became like withdrawn and quiet. He wouldn't speak about the film. That kind of makes you start to think, what else is going on? Not to mention the crew wouldn't even talk about it. Like they just felt like they went on a spiritual war. But here's the thing. You actually can avoid all those costs that they experienced. Like, I'm not going to lie to you and say that you're not going to experience some chaos, some confusion. You're not going to have some time where you question your entire existence. I did. But you're not here to endure that same pain, all those same costs as them. You aren't here to suffer. You're actually here to remember how great God is. I mean, I really wondered if I was cursed for a while, right? Like I said, I was out of money. All the publishing companies said no. And then I heard this voice. And it was like, you idiot. No, I'm just joking. It was like, who is your dream asking you to become? Henry David Thoreau has a quote. He says, the point of the goal, the point of your desires, it's not what you get. It's actually who you become that matters. So when you start assuming a new role and when you start to step into the reality that you really want to live, and then you hit the spiritual warfare part of the movie, just remember that your old self wants you to quit. Your old self wants you to turn back. Evil wants you to forget your spiritual identity. The job of evil is to make you feel powerless so that you retreat. And that's why when you ask yourself, who is my dream asking me to become? That changes your life. So instead, for me, of giving up and probably being depressed for the rest of my life, thinking that I was cursed, wondering what could have been, but I quit, I made a different choice. And here's the thing. There are two big choices that you need to make. There are two forks in the road. The first one is when you decide to shift, and then the second one comes after you already begun. And the second choice is the one where evil defeats most of us. That's when it happens most often. But on the other side of that second choice, that's the promised land. That's when everything starts to go your way. That's when God shows up in undeniable ways to prove that you made the right choice. Like, I decide I'm going to self-publish my book. I fill my car with a few thousand copies of the book. I'm like, God, I believe you will provide. You just need a little bit of faith. You might feel afraid. You might be uncertain. You might be uncomfortable or alone. And that's okay. You just say, God, I believe that you will provide. And you know what happened? Everything. Like, it's hard to even explain. I was just selling my books at farmers markets out of the trunk of my car, doing open mics at coffee shops, talking about my books while musicians were going. And that's when things started happening. Like strange, supernatural things, unexplainable. One time I drove a few hours to an open mic at a coffee shop in rural Oregon. One person showed up, but that one person, their mom was the organizer of a TEDx event, and she gets me booked for a TEDx talk. And that talk kind of went a little viral, like at least for me at the time. And then podcasts and local news and blogs, they all start emailing me and they're asking for interviews. And the next thing I know, I had sold 10,000 copies of a self-published book. And then after that, Penguin Random House, the biggest publishing company in the entire world gave me a book contract, a publishing deal for a few books. And before I really had time to wrap my head around everything, my entire reality changed. I went to making more money than I could ever spend. My website was getting millions of new visitors every single year. And every year since then, God has just kept showing up, and like in bigger and bigger and bigger and more beautiful ways. Now, one of the things that I did is I started to reprogram my subconscious. If you believe in good and evil, good over evil, it's important to understand that there is a agenda in our society to program us as negative as possible. Negative body image, thinking we aren't good enough, thinking we aren't smart enough. And we adopt all these limiting beliefs, all these limiting emotions that become our personality, and we stay stuck forever. So around that time, I made this success hypnosis for myself. I started listening to it every day. I went from like $1,500 a month to over $1 million a year. And every day I get these epic stories from people all around the world. It's free. It's jakeshypnosis.com, or you can click right here to get that, or it is linked in the description, or it is pinned as the top comment right there down below. It's jakeshypnosis.com right there down below. It's my free success hypnosis to reprogram your subconscious mind. All you got to do is listen to it for a couple minutes a day, and you can start to reprogram the subconscious mind. So you actually start to release a lot of the perceived evil or perceived bad luck or perceived negative forces in your life that are stopping you financially or with your health or your relationships or your success. And I say perceived for a reason, because a lot of it is subconsciously manifested. And if you just listen to this for 2 or 3 minutes a day, you're going to start to see your life change super quick. So check that out for free. It's jakeshypnosis.com. Now, let me just bring this back to you. What identity are you stepping into? What old role are you still clinging to that no longer fits? And most importantly, who would you become if you stopped fearing the collapse? Because maybe your world isn't falling apart. Maybe it's falling open. Maybe your breakdown is actually an initiation. This is the secret that Mel never shared out loud. But every single frame in that film screams it. Like, you don't watch transformation, you become it. And here's the thing, the Passion of the Christ wasn't just a movie, it was a glimpse into a spiritual battle. We all have to face it. Because here's the truth that no one will tell you. You're not waiting for reality. Reality's waiting for you. You're not waiting for God to show up. God's waiting for you to show up. And evil will do everything in its power to stop you, to fill your mind with negative subconscious thinking, and to test you with spiritual warfare. When you make the choice, reality must follow. The universe must answer. First, the old breaks down. The old version of yourself will subconsciously start whispering sweet nothings into your ear to get you to turn back. And you just remember, not today, Satan. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you do, make sure to hit the like, subscribe, bell notification. Give me a comment down below and let me know what you think in the comments. Check out my free success hypnosis, jakeshypnosis.com. It's pinned to the comments and in the description right there down below. And click here to watch another video.